Hello, 2B. Miss Caffrey here. I'm so excited to read you our next book called Seaside Dreams. We're going to be learning a lot about grandmothers from different cultures. As you may remember, I was raised by my grandmother from Ireland, and I'd highly encourage you to contact your grandmother if you have one or any elder in your family to give them love at this time and receive their love and their wisdom. Today, we will learn about a grandmother granddaughter relationship that takes place in the island of Cape Verde. So please enjoy and keep reading. Thank you. Seaside Dream by Janet Costa Bates, illustrated by Lambert Davis. To Maria Bedade Nobre Costa, Grandma, I love you still, JCB. To Journeys Across the Sea, LD. Cora couldn't remember the last time so many people had squeezed into her grandma's house. Joyful shouts filled the air, and there were hugs all around every time an aunt or uncle, a cousin, or a friend walked through the doorway. Some hugs came with kisses, some hugs came with heavy, hearty pats on the back, and some hugs even came with happy tears. Birthday, Uncle Manny greeted Grandma. Tomorrow's the big day, your 70th birthday, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Grandma smiled and reminded him, every birthday is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Family and friends had come from across the country and across town to celebrate Grandma's birthday. Cora felt she was the luckiest one of all. She came from right next door. Cora and her cousin Gabe kept an eye on the parade of presents coming into the house. There were boxes of all sizes, wrapped in colorful paper and tied with ribbons and bows. I don't have a present for Grandma, Cora whispered to Gabe. She doesn't care if you give her a present, he said. I know, but I care. In no time, the house was overflowing with stories, laughter, and food. Everybody was busy cooking for the big party the next day. Mostly they cooked Cape Verdean food since some family like Grandma had come to the United States from the Cape Verde Islands. Why is there so much food? Said Cora. When your grandmother was still in Cape Verde, there wasn't always enough food, said Aunt Celia. But now we are blessed with enough to share. Uncle Manny dipped a spoon into a large pot and held it out to Cora for a taste. That's good carpaccio, no? He said. It's moon chupa, Aunt Celia said of the stew. On my island, we call it cachupa, insisted Uncle Manny. Well, said Aunt Celia, you come from the wrong island, and they both laughed. Cora and Cabe looked at each other and shrugged. One chupa, cachupa, it all tasted the same to them. Cora liked being surrounded by family, but she missed having Grandma all to herself. She missed the walk on the beach she and Grandma took almost every day in the summer. After dinner, Cora left the noisy kitchen for the quiet back porch where she could watch the moonlight sparkle on the ocean. She tried to think of a birthday gift for Grandma. Cora was lost in thought when Grandma found her. I am thinking of taking a beach walk, said Grandma. But it's nighttime, said Cora. It might be scary out there by yourself. Then maybe someone could come with me to hold my hand. Maybe someone could. Cora was happy to have Grandma all to herself again. Grandma and Cora walked along the water's edges, listening to the sea. Cora tossed a shell into the water and watched as the waves rocked it, carrying the small shell farther and farther away from the shore. Grandma stood silently, looking out at the ocean. "What's out there?" Cora asked Grandma. "Ora, my sister, across the ocean in the old country. The night before I left Cape Verde, there was a warm breeze, just like tonight. We stood on the beach and made a promise that we would send each other as many mantenbas as there are stars." "As many what?" Cora asked. "Mantenjas, messages. Sending a mantenja is like saying hello, but more. It means, though you are far away, I want to keep you in my life." Uncle Manny always said Grandma had a smile so bright that it shone through her eyes. But now Cora saw sad eyes, not smiling ones. Cora wondered what it would feel like to be so far from someone you loved for so long. "Why did you leave Cape Verde?" asked Cora. "For a long time there was no rain on the islands, so no food would grow," Grandma said. "Many people were starving. I could not stay." "Why didn't Ora come with you?" "She said the islands were home. She could not make herself leave." "You could visit Ora," Cora said, as she and Grandma sat down on the sand. "Almost 40 years ago I came here on a boat," Grandma said. "The journey was long and difficult, and I have not forgotten it. I will not do it again." "You could take a plane. A plane would be fast," Cora told her, and Grandma shook her head. "You made it across the ocean once," Cora said. "I know you could do it again." The smile slowly slipped back into Grandma's eyes. She gave Cora a big hug and said, "My Cora, you have such faith." That night, as Cora lay in bed, she listened to the waves through the open window. The splashes and swooshes lulled her to sleep. Soon she began to fly the way you can fly only in a dream. Cora skimmed the tops of the waves, soaring over the ocean until she saw a beach. On the beach was a woman standing tall and straight, with her silver-colored hair pulled back in a bun, just like Grandma's. Cora watched as the woman picked up a shell, gave it a kiss, and tossed it into the water. From way up high, Cora watched as the ocean waves carried the shell farther and farther away from the shore. The next morning, Cora woke up knowing just what to give Grandma for her birthday. Cora would have to work quickly to finish her present before the party. While everyone was busy getting ready for church, Cora got dressed and slipped outside. She gathered what she needed and then went back to her room and put everything together. Just as Cora was tying the ribbon on her gift, she heard her mother call, "Cora, come on, time to go." After church, it was time for Grandma's party. They all walked to the beach carrying plates and platters, bowls and pots brimming with food. Gabe looked very important carrying the birthday cake. Uncle Manny struggled with a large stack of colorful presents. You drop the gifts, then no mu chupa, Aunt Cecilia teased. Ka chupa, Uncle Manny said, laughing. Cora carried her own present that she had wrapped in a small paper bag. They ate for what felt like hours and hours to Cora. At last, it was time for Grandma to open her gifts. Everyone oohed and ahed when Grandma opened a big box containing a hat for church, then another with a hat for gardening. Someone even gave her a hat for the beach. Cora wanted to give Grandma her present when they were alone. She waited until Grandma opened each gift slowly so as not to tear the paper. She watched as Grandma saved the ribbons and bows, gently putting each one aside. Cora almost couldn't stand it when Grandma stopped to give a big hug to the giver of each gift. Once all the other presents had finally been opened, Cora tugged on Grandma's arms. Please, can we take our walk now? Cora asked. My Cora, I would love to take our walk now, Grandma replied. Cora held up her gift carefully. Such a pretty bag, said Grandma. What's inside? You'll see, Cora said, so excited she felt as if she could fly right up to the sky. When they reached a quiet spot near the water, they sat down and Cora handed Grandma her present. Grandma untied the ribbon and lifted out a small glass jar filled with sand and water. A few seashells and beach pebbles rested on top of the sand. How beautiful, said Grandma, admiring the jar. Thank you, Cora. You know how the ocean brings everything back and forth? Said Cora. I thought maybe Aura stood on this sand. Maybe she even picked up one of these shells. Grandma's hands shook slightly as she took out a shell and touched it to her cheek. Grandma, Cora whispered, I think Aura sent you a mantan in my dream last night. Grandma closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, she gazed out across the water. Cora, she said, an airplane to Cape Verde. Pretty fast, no? Very fast, Cora replied. Grandma turned to Cora. I'm thinking maybe I could go visit. Would you go by yourself? Asked Cora. Maybe someone could come with me to hold my hand, said Grandma. Cora's face lit up, a smile shining through her eyes. Maybe someone could. The end.